Hignet's corner, beyond Bent. Janssen! And Blackburn Rovers are 18 minutes away from a Premiership return.
As far as Stewart, just outside the penalty area, clips it central for David Dunn. David Dunn equalises! It just had to be. Dax corner and it goes. Glance towards goal! And Rovers have taken the lead! And Charlie Mulgrew has scored his 14th of the season. It may well be the goal that sends Rovers back into the Championship.
Hello and welcome to a very special edition of the 1875 podcast. I'm your host, Tom Schofield, and I'm very excited to bring you, like I said, what is a very special edition of the podcast. But first, a message, as ever, from our sponsors.
The Rovers Chat YouTube channel is proudly sponsored by 6yardsout.com. They've got retro football from every era with mugs, phone cases and much more. They also have plenty of Rovers goods, including apparel with the famous 94-95 season and this season's kit. Check them out using the link in the description below.
So, Euro 2020, obviously at the forefront of everyone's minds. Football might be coming home. We don't know yet. I'm sure we'll speak to Danny a bit about that later on. But with that being said, it's obviously always nice to talk about Blackburn Rovers, and today is no exception. With all the nice out of the way with regard to 2020, I am honoured to be able to welcome Danny to the podcast. The striker spent 4 years at Rovers, making 176 appearances and scoring 52 goals. Danny, first and foremost, how are you? How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm very well, thank you. Obviously, a bit of a strange time with everyone going back to football, and probably the first time in 20 years where I've not had to go in for a pre-season. So, kind of strange, but I'm enjoying my time off. I'm enjoying time with the family, and everything's going well.
Going to say we were speaking a bit before, weren't we? Must be nice not having to keep peak physical condition. Have a couple of beers, maybe a few takeaways, and enjoy yourself, knowing that you don't have to go back and do all that running.
Yeah, it's been great. Obviously, it's been different, like I said, but that's part and parcel of football. It's always going to come to an end, and I felt as though I've dealt with it quite well, and it's been nice speaking to some of the boys over the last couple of days, seeing how they're getting on in the first couple of days of pre-season.
Have a good laugh at them because they're sweating.
Oh, yes.
Definitely. Obviously, as with the podcast with Elliot Rovers fans, please do get your questions in because at varying points throughout the show, we will pause them to the man himself. Also, do be on the lookout for an edited highlights version of this podcast, which will be available in the coming week. Danny, I think there is only one place to start with regards to your time at Rovers, and that's obviously when you first joined the club. Obviously, you originally came in on loan. It was Paul Lambert that brought you in. What was the vision that he sold you that made you want to join the club for the remainder of that season after, obviously, a couple of loan moves and what had been, as you'd probably admit, a tough time at Sunderland?
Oh, yeah, it was a massively difficult time. Kind of fell out of love with the game, if I'm being perfectly honest with you, and it was tough, and like I say, I had a few loan spells at Middlesbrough and Wolves, and kind of ended up back at Sunderland and then getting back into the team. So it was a stop-start couple of years, but I'd spoke to Paul Lambert, and I'd obviously known a lot about him from his time at Norwich and Aston Villa, and within 5 or 10 minutes of speaking to him, he had a clear vision of what he wanted to do with the football club, and he wanted to get the owners to back him and give it a right good go, and he kind of made it a bit easier for me to join, and I'm delighted I did in the end.
Yeah, obviously around that time it was a bit of upheaval at Rovers. Lambert had just come in. Some players were being sold, and I guess you were sort of brought in as a replacement for one outgoing player who obviously was prolific at the club and loved by fans, Jordan Rhodes. He was sold just after you arrived, wasn't he? So I think you played a game at Charlton with him? Am I right in saying that where you were together? Yeah. Were you all disappointed that you never got to strike a partnership with him? Or when you came in, were you very aware that there was a good chance Jordan would be leaving at the end of the window?
I think it was, I was probably more aware that he would be moving on and it wouldn't be a long-term partnership. Obviously, his record speaks for itself. His numbers at Blackburn were frightening, and, he was at some point he was probably going to get that move, and it just so happened to be when I had joined the club. But, I didn't really think too much into it. I was kind of coming with a point to prove. I had the bit between my teeth, and I wanted to certainly prove a lot of people wrong, because I have no doubt when I first signed for Blackburn that a few of the fans would have looked at the previous few years and went, why we signing this guy and what have you. I know how football works, so it was up to me to prove them wrong, and I feel as though over the 4.5 years I kind of did that.
I think you certainly did, and obviously you provide us with many, many happy memories, which we'll get onto later. But we've got to get through these not so happy times before we get onto the good stuff. So I do apologise for all those fans that are watching, and to you, Danny, if it brings up any unsavoury memories. Just before we jump into some viewer questions, when Paul Lambert left, obviously your future at the club wasn't necessarily guaranteed. You were in on loan, contract up at Sunderland. Had you had any conversation with Paul Lambert prior to him deciding to obviously exercise the option in his contract to leave the club, that you were going to stay around for another season? Or was that something that wasn't really discussed until after Paul had left? And what was the feeling around the club when Paul left as well? Obviously, he came in with huge expectation and sort of fell short, with both the owners falling short and I guess the man himself. Yeah,
it was strange. We never really spoke about what would happen the season after. Obviously, when I was on loan, it was more based around getting myself confident again and getting myself fully match fit and again proving people wrong, and that's what kind of happened. And then we had a team meeting, and Paul Lambert kind of said, "Listen, if the owners don't back me, there's every chance I could be leaving." And true to his word, a few weeks down the line, he come in at Brockhall and informed us all that he was going to be leaving. And obviously, it was quite strange. Obviously, I was on loan and my future was up in the air. But the most important thing was the club trying to move forward after Paul leaving. And we all know what come the next season. It was tough times, but nothing was really spoke about. Signing permanently. It was all just do well on loan and see where we go.
What was the general feeling with regards to him announcing that he was leaving with the lads that were there permanently? Were they quite shocked? And was it a case of, for some of them that have been there longer term, it's almost deja vu that the same thing's happening again?
I think for the ones who had already been at Rovers for a few years and kind of knew a bit more about the club than I did at the time and what was going on, I think they were a bit gutted, to be honest. So I feel as though as a coach, he's great. As a man manager, he's got some really good skills, a really good skill set. So I think there was a few disappointed faces, obviously when he did leave. But I don't begrudge him for that, because he said if he doesn't get the backing, then he kind of didn't want to be a part of it, and he stuck to his word.
Certainly, and obviously in the end he did leave. And I think we'll jump into some viewer questions before we take on the questions for the next manager. This one, not a question though, just from one of your former teammates, John Buckley, Big DG. I really do hope that is John Buckley, not someone that's made the YouTube name that, because John Buckley watching one of our podcasts would be a bit of an honour. So hello, John. We've got Chris Hayes. This sort of goes on to some of the next questions. But Chris Hayes asked, Danny, were you a fan of joining Owen Coyle for a can of Iron Brew?
Not at 9 o'clock in the morning, I wasn't, no.
John Buckley's another question. Show us a Yankee Bravo DG.
Oh, I'll show you that later, Bucko. That's a good story, that, to be fair.
That's one we can ask later on then.
Yeah.
And then finally, nice and simple one. You can have some time to think about this one, but Kevin Bradshaw asked, what was your favourite goal at the club, either scored by yourself or as a collective? Time to think if you want.
No, I don't need to think. I think most people would probably say the Man U game, but we lost that game, so I wouldn't have said that was my favourite. The one I scored was probably the Peterborough one, when we went 2-1 up. The noise after that goal was something I hadn't heard at Ewood, and it put us within touching distance of getting back to the Championship. And then obviously the big skipper's goal at Doncaster away. We kind of battered Doncaster away and missed numerous chances, and then Big Chaz come up and headed one into the top corner. So, them two goals really do stand out for me.
Definitely, I think those two games are two games I'll be asking you about a bit later on. They're in my notes to specifically ask about 3 games. Peter and Doncaster, another one. Do you want to take a guess at the other game that I'm going to ask about, also in that League One season?
Shrewsbury.
Yeah, he's got it. There he is. He knows the season on the back of his hand. He knows it very well. But yeah, those 3 games are ones that we're going to be speaking about just a bit later on. But like I said, before we get into those happy times, we're going to speak a bit more about not so happy times. At the end of the season, obviously, your loan move had finished, as we discussed. Lambert left. For whatever reason, the powers that be decided to bring in former Burnley manager Owen Coyle. Before we speak about the man himself, what made you sign for Blackburn with Owen Coyle? Was it the fact that you'd been there previously, you felt comfortable there, or was it because you really wanted to play for Owen Coyle?
To be honest, in my mind, there was nowhere else I wanted to go, no matter who come in as manager. To be perfectly honest, I instantly felt at home at Blackburn. The players took to me, the fans got behind me. You know, I loved what the club was about. Even though it was a difficult time, I kind of seen that as a bit of a challenge. So, you know, Owen Coyle did say all the right things, of course he did, but was he a massive influence in me resigning? Probably not, if I'm being perfectly honest. I'd kind of already made my mind up before even conversations had started in my own head. So, yeah, not too much of a big part he played, if I'm being perfectly honest.
At that time, did you have any other options if, say, Blackburn hadn't come back in for you? Was there any other potential clubs that were looking at you that you were aware of, or was it something that you were always tunnel vision with regards to Blackburn?
There was a few whispers of different clubs, but again, nothing really concrete where I had the conversation with owners and managers. I was kind of laying all my cards out on the table, hoping Blackburn would come back in when they got the manager sorted out. So no, there was offers, there was interest certainly, but you know, I don't think there was any other club I was going to be going to after the loan spell I had, to be honest.
No, definitely. We're obviously thrilled that you did decide to sign for us. Speaking now more about Coyle, I don't think it's any secret that Rovers fans didn't take to him, and I think there's a multitude of reasons for that. There have been suggestions by some players, Elliot Bennett being one of them, on a recent one we did with him, that while he's a genuinely nice bloke and may have been a fantastic number 2, he perhaps wasn't the best manager ever. And training was basically non-existent. I mean, there's a bit of stories of table tennis and, like I say, iron brew at 9 a.m. What was the feeling with regards to that when it came to Owen Coyle?
Exactly what Benno said. If I'm perfectly honest, I think Benno's hit the nail on the head. He would have been an unbelievable number 2. The way he likes to have a laugh and rally behind the boys and fills the boys full of enthusiasm, but you know, that's all good and well, but as footballers you want to be working on certain games. Every game throws up a different challenge, and you know, we were 4-4-2, and I laugh about it now because we used to joke saying we used to be 4-4 open, because if you remember the start of last season, we had 2 points from 7 games, I think, and we were letting in goals all over the place, and it looked a shambles. It was a shambles. And there was several times as a group of players we would have meetings amongst the players and meetings with his first team staff and saying, listen, we need more 11-a-side action, team shapes and more set play drills. And listen, sometimes in football we moan about it because we overdo it, but in them times we were crying out for it, to be honest. And I think the one game we did do it was before Man United, and we should have been doing it a long time before that, if I'm perfectly honest.
That United performance was a really good one as well. I remember it was one of them where I think Mourinho made a comment after the match saying that if that had been the Blackburn that were playing in the Championship, then Blackburn wouldn't be in the state that they're in. And obviously you got your goal. Mourinho applauded you. Obviously we lost the game, like you said before. In that moment, though, when you score a goal against, at the time, Mourinho, who still had a lot of pedigree about him, probably still does, not as much now, but at the time, obviously, it was Mourinho's United. They were supposedly on the comeback trail. Yeah. How good did that feel? Because we went toe-to-toe with United that day. We had Zlatan, Pogba. They had to bring them 2 on to win the game.
Listen, it was a great feeling to score against Manchester United. No matter who's in charge is a special feeling, and then back at the games now and seeing clapping on the sideline, is also nice. We did hold our own, and like you said before, I remember running back for a corner and to defend the corner, and Jason Steele was in goal at the time. I said, Steely, have a look who's coming on now. So we kind of knew we'd give him a run for the money, and they had to bring on the big boys. And not long after that, Pogba sticks the ball over the top of Ibrahimovic and the score. So I think it was our probably best performance under Kyle. But if I remember correctly, he didn't last much longer after that.
Yeah, I think he was sat the next day. It's weird how it works.
Yeah.
You'd think that obviously we've been crying out for him to leave the club probably a couple months before. And I think with Coyle, and obviously from a player's perspective, and tell me if I'm wrong, do you feel that the fans' angst on the pitch, when he's announced as manager and you know the history where he's managed basically every single club in the Northwest, so all our rivals, do you feel that as players, when the fans are there on the side of the pitch and they're obviously making their feelings be known, as every fan does? Do you feel that, and does that almost translate onto the way that you feel, or do you sort of have to block out that sound and think, I got a job to do, I can't get emotionally invested?
Yeah, as footballers, you have to block it out because not everyone's going to be singing from the same sheet. It's tough. I kind of knew when he took over, like you said, the Burnley connection, the Bolton connection, and was it Wigan as well, things like that. Teams like that he'd managed, and I knew the fans were angry already. And in the start we made it a whole lot worse. Obviously losing to Norwich, and did we get beat at Cardiff, and we were getting beaten.
Cardiff, yeah. I think Shane Duffy scored. Shane Duffy had an absolute shocker.
He had a shocker and then got a £3 million move.
Yeah.
But yeah, that, I think the start kind of killed it. If I'm being truthfully honest, because the fans were right on his back. They were right on the players' back, and rightly so. We weren't performing, and I'm not making this as an excuse, but if we had got the right coaching and the team shape that we wanted on a Friday and a Thursday and stuff like that, I think we would have performed a lot better. But I think it translated from the fact that we didn't do sort of team shape, and you could certainly say that on a Saturday or a Tuesday, because we were wide open against teams and we were picking us off far too easily.
No, definitely were, and I think as fans we felt that as well. We didn't think this was a team that should have been in the situation it was in, and it was, unfortunately. I don't know if you've listened to Under the Cosh with Ben Marshall, the podcast that he's done with them. Have you seen it, the podcast?
I've seen bits of the Marshall one, yeah.
Have you? Because as Chris Hayes asked a question here saying, how good were Coyle's volleys in training? And is it true that he would say his name prior to volleying, and just like, Coyle? Yeah.
So we used to start, so I'll give you some insight to some of the training sessions. Some of them was you were being sort of 4 teams of 5 on the 6-yard box, and he actually took the full net off the goal, so it was just a goal for him. And you had to run to the goal line, throw the ball up, head it off the bar, catch it, and then throw it to your next guy here to do it. And then there was one where you had to drop the ball and half volley it over the goal and catch it inside the goal where the net would be, throw it back and stuff like that. So that was some of the sessions. Then every 5-a-side game, one team would get a free shot at goal. So without touching the ball, you could be 1-0 down. So your head's flying off already, and you're thinking, what is going on? I haven't touched the ball and you've just scored. And then we do the finishing at the end. And listen, don't get me wrong, his finishing ability was sensational. And he used to shout Coyle, and then we used to do a half volley, so he'd throw it up, half volley, and he used to go, meow. Well, stood behind, laughing. We shouldn't have been laughing, mate. But it was just so hard not to laugh. It be kind of come that bad. We had to laugh about it. And
if you don't laugh, you'll cry.
Do you know what I mean? Yeah, we were like I said before, we were having meetings as a group of lads and a group of players, kind of saying, listen, we're just going to have to ignore what's been said on the sideline, and whatever instructions he's given, and we're going to have to do what we feel is best. And that's how far I got to. And probably the fans didn't see that side of it, but I remember 2, 3, 4 meetings off the top of my head comfortably where we all like said, listen, we're going to have to pull together as a group of lads and just do it our way.
I think obviously in the end, he didn't have to, because obviously he was sacked, like we said, with United. After the United game, sorry. Tony Mowbray comes in, and at the moment, Mowbray is a bit of a controversial figure with Blackburn fans. I don't know if you've seen on Twitter and Instagram and whatnot. But
Yeah.
I think the credit that I'll give to him, especially at the time, he rejuvenated the club and came in at a time when we were in desperate need of someone that could produce something. In that first week, how much of a change did you see from where all of a sudden you've gone from training sessions where you're volleying a ball over the post to catch to Tony Mowbray, who, from the outside anyway looking in, seems to actually know what he's doing, if that makes sense?
Yeah, no, it does. And to be fair, when the gaffer come in, he's from Middlesbrough, where I live. He's obviously a Middlesbrough legend. He's managed Middlesbrough, and there was a few of us North East boys there at the time. And he kind of pulled us and he asked us what was missing, do you think, and what should we do more of, and very clever. And we said we were crying out for team shape, set players, and patterns of play. And I think if you remember the first half of Burton, we went from a team previous to the Man U game wide open to a team who dominated the ball and kept the ball for 45 minutes pretty much against Burton. And so it was a massive contrast, and I do feel as though he was the right man for the job at the time. And if you look certainly over the League One season, the back end of the Championship season when he come, I think if he'd come a month earlier, we're safe. We'll definitely be safe because our form was brilliant for the last 16, 17 games. So he was a great. He was the right man for the job at the time, 100%, and you can see why.
No, I think the stat at the time was that obviously you can't look at it like this, but had Mowbray been in charge, it had the season started, from the day that Mowbray was in charge, Blackburn Rovers were 8th, which sort of goes saying. It was actually my next question was that had he been in charge a month earlier, did the club stay up? And like you say, they 100% do.
Right, what we went down in goal difference, didn't we?
Yeah.
A game, 2 games. We would have been safe, 100%. I have no doubt about that.
It's exactly what Benno said as well. It was literally just one game, and obviously the frustration because Huddersfield made 10 changes.
Yeah, that killed us. Yeah.
What was the feeling at the club with players then? Do you understand from the professional perspective, but then on that personal level, it's really annoying that obviously that's sort of contributed to you going down?
I understand it if there's nothing riding on it at the bottom of the league and you're playing maybe one of them teams, I understand it then. But when, teams are within touch and distance of each other, that amount of changes is kind of hard to take, to be honest.
We're into integrity.
Yeah, I do feel that. And listen, did Huddersfield go up that year as well?
Yeah, I think they won on penalties, did they?
Yeah, that's kind of bittersweet that when you think about it now. I haven't really thought about that properly, to be honest, but as I sit here and think about it now, yeah, it wasn't a great sort of advert for the Championship and making that many changes when they're playing a team who are fighting for relegation along with 2 or 3 other clubs. No,
definitely. I tend to agree, but obviously I guess I'm biased because it sent us down. But I think it probably did help us out in the long run. Alex BRC's asked the question here, just saying, how did it feel to hear the support of the crowd at Brentford away at full time? Obviously, we've been relegated, but put up a really good fight in the end. I thought that there was nothing more as players that you could have done on the day. We did our job. Results didn't go our way.
Yeah, it was tough. I think it was the last 2 games we beat Villa at home and Brentford.
Beat Villa, then Brentford, yeah.
Still went down. So that was hard to take, and you're kind of worried how the fans will react at full time. I think you could see on every single player's face how devastated we all were, and to turn around and hear that end of the Brentford Stadium still singing and getting right behind us was quite surreal at the time. Obviously, we were devastated we were going down, but then you kind of feel that support from the fans, and it kind of gives you a little bit of a boost, which really does sound strange at the time, but that's how it felt. And we all went away that summer devastated, and the season afterwards was brilliant, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was one of the best. So I'm very glad that you were there to enjoy it, which leads me nicely on to my next question. It's almost like I've got a plan in front of me, and I've
for us three, but Darrell Lenihan was attracting interest from Sheffield United, I think, at the time, and there was a lot of us who probably did have offers to move on, but if I'm being perfectly honest, it never once crossed my mind. I felt as though I owed it to the club, to myself, after the time I had at Sunderland, to jump ship when the club had just been relegated didn't sit well with me, didn't bode well with me at all. So I was getting phone calls off my agent saying, there's interest. Do you want to take it any further? And the answer was no. Simple as that.
Which clubs are interested, if you don't mind me asking?
I can't remember at the time. I think Derby had made an inquiry. Cardiff as well at one point had been on the phone, but it never really got to that point. And I didn't, being deadly serious, I didn't really say, who's interested. It never once crossed my mind to leave, if I'm being perfectly honest. And I think that really does come from how hard of a time I had at Sunderland. So I didn't want to kind of just move on after a year and a half, as a permanent signing and half a season as a loan. I didn't want to jump ship. Is
that decision made easier as well when you have such a good connection with the fans like you did? It's not something where Sunderland obviously experienced where fans were on your back and they saw you as a villain almost, and then obviously you come to Blackburn and everyone adores you. Is that?
Yeah, it does. I think it did play a massive part, to be honest. I was falling back in love with football again, and that took a bit of time, especially the way we started the season. It wasn't enjoyable at all, but by the end of it, I was really enjoying football again, and we put up a really good fight to stay in the league as well. To feel the affection from the fans and to jump ship at that time just never really interested me, to be honest.
No, definitely. And that team in the following season in League One will go down in my memory for as long as I live. I'm young enough to have not experienced as winning the Premier League. I was born in 97. Obviously, 95 was the league winning team. I remember very briefly images of my dad celebrating when we won the League Cup in 2002, but that's it. For me, that League One season was just to have a team that I went into every single game thinking, we're going to win this. How special was that group of players? It looked like you all seemed to have a real good connection. There didn't seem to be a single bad egg. You think back of Blackburn teams that can find bad eggs, but in that team, it seemed like everyone, even those that weren't playing week in, week out, everyone was pulling in the same direction.
Yeah, I think Mowbray has a lot of credit to have with that about the bad egg situation. I think he moved players on quickly from the Championship season, and he brought in obviously Daki, who's been a revelation, and Richie Smallwood, Adam Armstrong come in the January, and I think all our signings played a massive part. But that season was special. The fact that we'd all stuck together and no one jumped ship was brilliant. And going into pre-season, there's always talk about players leaving, and I never once heard that. No one tried to put the gaffer's door down and get a move and play higher. Everyone pulled in the right direction, and that was a great feeling to have. And then, like I said, we brought Daki in and Richie, who was two unbelievable players in that League One season. So it was nice, even though we were sitting bottom after 2 games, weren't we?
Yeah, we lost to Southend and then Doncaster.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that was a blessing, if I'm being honest. I think
it was almost like a baptism of fire into the league. Yes. Because do you think there was a sense of, from players both coming in and maybe players going down, not arrogance, but you thought that you were good enough to get out, and perhaps you took it a little bit too easy? You maybe didn't take teams as serious as perhaps you should, or is that unfair, do you think?
No, I think it's a combination of that. Yeah, I think if you looked at our squads, and if our team sheet goes in at Southend, I'm sure they're thinking, oh my God, this is going to be a really tough game today, and but it was a really tough game for us, not for them. So them first 2 games, I really do think were a blessing. It kind of give us a kick up the backside that we needed, and I'm so glad it happened early on, because I think was it the 3rd game Bradford away, Dom Samuel scored, we won 1-0, and the famous huddle, the cringy huddles that come out. But I think I only seen that once at Blackburn, and at the time it did feel as though it was the right thing to do. And looking back, it might have played a big part. And I think it showed the togetherness within the squad and the players, and I think that rubbed off on the fans. And then for that season, the fans were superb, and relegation to League One was a disaster. But I sit here now and look at it and think, the fans, the players have kind of got an identity and got the club back on the side and all pulling in the right direction. Because when I first signed, there was protests, there was tennis balls on the pitch, and it was kind of tough to see. But to see the flip side of it, and everyone pulling in that same direction was incredible.
And you and one man played a huge part in that. And that man, as you mentioned before, was Bradley Dack. You seemed to just gravitate towards each other, both as humans and players. You seem to have a really good relationship off the pitch and on the pitch. And when you saw, when seeing you two in full flow on the pitch, when it was like you'd win the knockdowns, Dack would be there and he'd be there finishing it. And then if you didn't finish it, then you know that you're there straight away to put the ball in the back of the net. We've had a lot of good partnerships at Rovers over the years, obviously. Big one being obviously Shearer and Sutton. But is it just one of them things where it just worked, where both your playing styles complemented each other perfectly, where you just knew that when you were on the pitch, you were going to cause whichever team problems?
I thought that straight away. When Dacky signed and he walked through the door, I pretty much said to him, I'll get you 15 goals this year. I'd watched clips of him. I'd seen his intelligent runs and late runs into the box, and I thought that was perfect for me. And Dacky was one of them players who can get out of a tight situation and land the ball, right on your forehead. So I knew it was going to work. But if you look at the start of that season, I think it probably took Dacky till November really to get going.
Yeah, it seemed to be a bit of a slow one for both of you. I know obviously at the start you were sort of in and out of the side, and I don't think we knew our best 11. I remember actually, me and my dad went to Shrewsbury away when we drew 1-1. I think Dack scored at last minute. No, maybe not last minute, last 5-10 minutes. Yeah, and I remember he played on the right midfield, and my dad said to me, "Don't where's Bradley Dack? Don't look very good on the wing, does he?" I thought, I wronged. Afterwards, we laughed. At the time, we were like, "Oh, no, Dad!" But obviously, it was a tough start from. I think he'd come struggled at Gillingham in that last season, hadn't he? Coming with a lot of expectation, and I just remember my dad saying, like I said, just about Dack. Both not wasting money on him, and obviously made to eat our words completely.
It took him a bit of. He had a few niggles in the early parts of the month. I was in and out of the team, and probably a bit frustrated with the way it started that season in terms of my own performance. And then Dom played the Bradford game, scored, and stayed in the team, and rightly so. It was. I remember having a conversation with the gaffer on a Friday before a game, and it was pretty heated, to be fair. And he kind of said to me the start of that season, you're going nowhere, you're going to be the main focal point of the team, and you're going to be playing. And then after 2 games I was out of the team, and at the time I was thinking anyone could have been changed. So I was out of the team for a long time. And we had a conversation, as men, not nothing out of the ordinary, just as men. And I was frustrated, and he kind of says, "Listen, I need you to work harder." And I said, "Right, so you're telling me if I work harder, I can get back in this team?" And he was like, "Yeah." So went away, worked harder, and then by the November time, I think it kind of all come together, and that's when me and Dacky kind of went on a great run together and playing well. Not only me and Dacky, Charlie Mulgrew got 14 goals from centre half, and Richie Smallwood, Corey Evans, even when Elliot Bennett played in midfield, they were doing all the dirty work. But me and Dacky got a lot of plaudits that year. But for me, the full team was brilliant. I think we had a great spine: David Rea, Charlie, Dower, Richie, Corey, Dacky, me, and we all we all worked well together.
No, I think I definitely agree, and we'll speak a bit about, obviously, some of the good team performances in a minute, but just a few more questions. This one from Luke Kimberley. It's a serious question, he said. What's your go-to Tesco meal deal?
To be fair, I don't really get them, I don't really get them meal deals. When I used to stay down in Blackburn, we used to always go to, was it Mezzo?
Yeah.
We used to go to Mezzo, all the boys, and have pasta dishes and that together before games. Stuff that fans probably won't even see. There was like 7 or 8 of us. We used to sit and watch the football together on a Friday night before games, and we used to go out for food together. Quite regularly, breakfast together before games and stuff like that. Even home games. So a Tesco meal, I don't really have one, if I'm perfectly honest.
Oh, Luke will be disappointed, but it's okay. Joe's got another one. Favourite motorway? Nice and simple. Do you have one? Can you enjoy motorways?
The A1.
The M1 or the A1?
The A1.
A1.
Go ahead.
There we go.
Yeah.
And let's have a look. Andy Watson asks, best place to take my missus for a date on Teesside?
Central Park.
There you go, Andy. So
Enjoy.
note that down.
Enjoy and thank me later, Andy.
So moving on then to some of those performances. The first one I'm going to talk about is the Shrewsbury one, where it was 3-1, I think it was. That just sprung to mind, that game, where it was sort of makeshift 11 because Elliot Bennett was playing midfield, like you mentioned. Yeah. And I think he had the game of his career, from what I can remember. He was unreal. Yeah. What was that game like? Because for me, as a fan, that was the game where I said, we are going to go up. I knew at that moment that we were going to go up because Shrewsbury were on a roll, weren't they?
Yeah, we knew that game was massive. They were 5 points clear, I think, of us at the time. And we knew if we put in the performance and won that game, they would be heavily looking over their shoulders. And obviously, I think it was a pretty solid performance from us, to be honest. Obviously, Charlie with a free kick, and then they equalised to a penalty, and then Daggy hits a post and tries to claim an assist for the second. And then Charlie scored a penalty. And I think if you see when we won that penalty, I kind of go berserk afterwards thinking, I know this is a big moment. And, Charlie's left foot, you pretty nailed on from the score, to be honest. So it was a massive moment, a massive game. The feeling afterwards was great in the dressing room. We kind of knew we wanted something after that result. And you could see that in the dressing room afterwards.
No, definitely. And there's just something I want to pick up on because I remember the penalty. Dom Samuel went, didn't he? And it was a bit of a contentious one. Joe's asked, did you notice a significant difference in the refereeing standards in that League One season? Because the refereeing in the Championship's atrocious. But it was worse in League One.
I think they've got worse in the Championship and in League One and League Two. I really do think the standards got worse, to be honest, over the last 5 or 6 years. I don't think there's much difference, no, in terms of the quality of them. No, I don't. I think the bar used to be a lot higher, like I say, 5 or 6 years ago in terms of the refereeing. But on that occasion, Dom kind of bought the penalty because I was right behind it, and it was clever from Dom, and it was a massive moment in the game.
Do you remember having to calm down some of the Blackburn fans because Dean Henderson truly lost his head? It was he wasn't happy. I think he got a ban after the game. It's like a 4 or 5 game ban. Yeah,
he lost his head. I remember that, but
don't think fans helped, to be fair.
Listen, we all get that sort of abuse somewhere down the line at different stadiums, and Dean Henderson, for being at the time in League One, was a very chirpy goalkeeper. Don't get me wrong, I really think he's an outstanding goalkeeper. But at the time, he was really chirpy and he was full of belief in his own ability, which is fine. But that can kind of rub fans up the wrong way. So you've got to expect that, and you've got to expect the abuse. But what I didn't want at the time was, the fans getting involved and then it affected the referee's decisions or what he was going to do about the game. So I just felt as though it was the right thing to do to try and calm everyone down and, get that game finished because we were comfortable with it.
No, definitely. 10 screen, and Dwyer 18, just as Cat Hackey would, let alone a full Wembley. So that's why Pickford's been number one. He has been very good, to be fair, though, as well.
Yeah. Listen, he has been good, and like I say, if you're going to be that chirpy, you've got to expect some sort of abuse, and you've got to be able to take it.
No, definitely. And moving on then from that Shrewsbury game, you spoke about the Peterborough one before. I think I remember we were rubbish in the first half, and I swear there was an interview that you did on Sky where you said we were a little bit rubbish in the first half, not very good at all. In the second half, obviously we were 1-0 down, weren't we, going in at half-time, but the second half was unbelievable. And you mentioned the atmosphere of that game. What was that like to play in? Because Ewood hadn't been a happy place, really.
Yeah.
And that game, it just was.
That's why I kind of that game sticks out for me. It was the atmosphere, the noise from the crowd, and even though I remember we were that bad, we were 1-0 down, we were getting booed off. We got booed off, and we were in this middle of one defeat in 32, and we were getting booed off, and it was kind of one of them. Well, has that just happened? But then looking back in the game again. Yeah, well, David pulled off an unbelievable save from a free kick, didn't he? And they were fully on top of us, and we didn't kind of get the grips with it. But second half, we came out and we were a completely different team. And as soon as Dacky scored that header, there was no doubt in my mind we were going to go on and win that game. And that happened to be the case. And it was such a good feeling. We're doing the Sky, me and Dacky afterwards, and they're asking, is it done yet? And I'm kind of just wanting to say yes, but you can't. It's not the right thing to say. But that's the kind of belief we had after that sort of run give us. We were like, any sort of team we were up against, no disrespect, we thought we were going to go on and do a number on them. Whether we play well, we'll grind out a result. Whichever way, we kind of seem to have everything in that League One season. If we didn't play well, we'd still find a way to win. If we played well, we'd normally go on and win. So that game was great to be part of, and like I said, to hear Ewood like it was on that night was pretty special.
No, it definitely was, and for me, it was one of my favourite games that season. The favourite, though, was obviously the one that didn't happen at Ewood, the promotion night at Doncaster. Was the nerves going into that game as a player, because you knew that it was a win and it was done? It didn't matter then whether we obviously would have loved to have won the league, but it didn't matter. The main goal was completed. No nerves. Was it a case of, like you said, we're going to go in and we are going to beat these?
By the time that game come around, it was more excitement, if I'm perfectly honest, because of the one defeat in 32 or 33 games. Why wouldn't you be confident? Why wouldn't you be excited about this game going into it? And in the back of our mind, Doncaster beat us 3-1 at home, first home game of the season. So there was always something in the back of our heads thinking we're going here and we're going to turn you over and get promotion. But then again, you look at the first half, we missed so many chances. You're kind of thinking, is this goal going to come?
There is actually one that Joe Harvey asked. It says, Danny, just how did that ball not go in the net at Donny in the first half? I think it trickles along the line, and I remember it was just like that one of them where it's in slow motion. You think, right, when's this going to go in the net? And then it never ever does.
Yeah, I think there was a hole in the net. No, listen, we missed some chances. I missed chances. Dacky missed some chances. We were so far on top, it was scary. And I bet the fans, you're thinking, Doncaster's going to score in the second half because we've been that much on top. That's normally how football works. But, when the corner goes in and Charlie scores that header, the noise from the bench and the fans filling the whole side of the Keepmoat Stadium was special to see. And, we celebrated that night. Like we should have, like we deserved to. It was special to know that we got the club back into the championship at the first attempt.
Do you have any stories from that night, of perhaps some drunken antics that you can share, or
can't remember them?
That good of a night?
There was beers in the changing room. There was beers on the bus. Yeah, it was good. It was good. And listen, I think was the next game Charlton.
Yeah, we lost 1-0, but I think we didn't play so bad that game either.
But I think if you remember that team, me, Dacky,
big changes, yeah.
Derek Williams, there was lots of us didn't play. It was kind of give the other boys a run out. They've been just as important as the ones who've probably been playing week in, week out. They'd come in and fill the void when needed to. So I think the gaffer was kind of happy to be promoted and not too fussed about winning the league.
I was going to say, what was your opinion? We'll move on to the next season in a minute, because I'm conscious of time. I don't want to keep you for too long. But what was the feeling for you as players with that, with regards to winning the league? Because obviously, if you beat Charlton that day, then we would have won the league.
Yeah.
Did you just not care, though? I know that sounds awful because you want to come first, but for me in League One, the main thing's getting out. I didn't really care whether we finished first or second. I didn't care if we got up for the playoffs. I just cared that we got up.
Yeah. It's a good question, to be honest. Because the games had come that fast, the Peterborough game, the Doncaster game, the Charlton game, they all kind of come within the space of a week. We didn't have time to really think about it. We were just, the gaffer's going to be making changes. But we're comfortable with the boys coming in. So we didn't really think of it as weakening us. We thought the boys had come in on numerous occasions throughout the season and done a job for us and helped us along the way. So I didn't think that we would certainly lose a game against Charlton. I thought that team was more than capable of going there and getting the 3 points.
It was a horrible deflection they scored, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
It wasn't as if they'd played us off the park. Because I remember going, because I thought that was going to be the promotion game. Because obviously, I think Shrewsbury might have lost in the midweek prior to the Peterborough game, I think. So all of a sudden, Doncaster was the one that was going to think. I remember scrambling for tickets. Thankfully, we got them. But yeah, we'll move on a bit now. We'll look at a couple more questions from the comments. Let's have a look. Joe's got another one. Armour had some good games in League One, but did you think he'd go on to the level that he has now? That's a player that's just scored 30 goals at Championship level, unreal numbers. Did you see that in him?
Yes, I did. Armour was, 21 when he came to us, maybe. He was a young boy. He played a lot of football. Seen him in training the week, and he can go either way, left or right. I knew there was a boatload of goals coming. I think the last season I was there, did he get 17, 18 maybe?
Yeah, something like
so
that.
You kind of seen the jump from maybe 8, 9 to 17, 18, and then you've seen another jump to 30 now. I've seen it coming. He's an intelligent footballer for a young lad. He's lightning quick, and like I say, it's so hard for defenders because he's just as good on his left foot than he is on his right foot. So it doesn't surprise me. No, he's had a wonderful 2 years. I think last 2 seasons he's been a breath of fresh air, especially with the injury to Daki. He's kind of took over that mantle and being the man who's stood up and provided the goals and stuff like that. So I can only see Armour improving, if I'm perfectly honest, because I've seen him for 2.5 years, and he loves his football. He loves his finishing drills, and he's got a good head on his shoulders, which is the most important thing.
No, it's good to hear. I'd love to say that I can see him staying this season, but I'm pretty sure he'll be off to the Premier League, and I don't blame him. I think with certain players, you've got to look at them, and they outgrow clubs, and I think that's probably the case with Armour. But I think he'll always be remembered fondly. Do you see him moving on this season?
I think there's a very good chance, if I'm perfectly honest. And if the Premier League comes calling, then
it's hard to turn down.
Yeah, you can't stand his way. And the club will probably make a boatload of money on him as well, which is great. The club will be getting, you would like to think over £10 million for him at least. So I think Armour's been great for Blackburn. Even when I think the first couple of seasons he struggled to get double figures, but then the last 2 seasons he's more than made up for that. If the Premier League comes calling, I think it'll be difficult to hang on to Armour. No,
definitely. And a lighter-hearted question, Dennis Shah's asked, who's the longest in the shower at Blackburn when you were there?
He was on your show last week.
Was it Benno?
Benno.
I thought it was someone like Daki or someone. I can imagine Daki just, obviously, his missus cares a lot about his looks, needs to be Instagram ready.
Benno deflects. Benno's in the bath in the morning for half an hour, in the bath afterwards for half an hour, and then gets a shower.
Just loves water.
Elliot, yes, Elliot, he's deflecting massively.
Oh, brilliant. So yeah, moving on then to that first season back in the Championship. Personally, an unreal season for you. 1 Player of the Year for the club. 15 goals, was it? Which was your best return at Rovers? Was it 16, 15 in the league?
15 league, yeah, 16 in total, yeah.
Yeah, so what was that season like for you, obviously? Did you feel like it was a good reintroduction to the Championship for Blackburn?
Yes, I do. I think we were doing really well up until this game sticks out in my mind again, Brentford away.
Oh, yeah, 2-0 up. Yeah.
And after that, we kind of, went to free fall. We were so close to the playoffs, and then I think we won 1 in 9 or something after that.
I think at 2-0, I think we were, obviously, you look at the table as the results are coming in, don't you? And there's the scores. I think we were in the playoffs at 2-0, and all of a sudden it just sort of fell apart.
Yeah, it fell apart. Ben Rama and people like that were outrageous, and Watkins and stuff like that. But yeah, I think it was a good up until whenever it was, late January, early February. I think we were very good. We were in the top half of the table, which was nice. And then, like I say, that run of 1 in 9 after the Brentford game really, really disheartened us. And I think we ended up finishing 14th or 15th, something like that. And I really do think we should have finished higher.
It's almost been a carbon copy this season, that season, where you do unreal, and then all of a sudden, as Michael Pearson just said, the usual New Year slump seems to happen too often for our liking. That's football, though, isn't it? I guess.
I just find it hard. The Championship is so up and down. Like, Wickham can go to Norwich and win, and Norwich have probably not been beaten in 10 games. It's a crazy league. It's the main thing. I've always said it. I've said a lot of interviews with throughout my time at Blackburn. I still feel as though to say now is the consistency. The picking up the points here and there instead of the late defeats or whatever like that. Is them points are massive in this league, because it can jump you 1 or 2 places, or it can send you the other way quite comfortably. So I think consistency is the biggest thing for me. Consistently
inconsistent is probably the way to describe it. Just like you say, you go on a run, you think 3 or 4 games, and then you've lost 4.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So it's one of them. The following season, were you frustrated because you've come off the back where the fans have voted you as Player of the Season ahead of Bradley Dack, who also had a superb season that year? So as fans, we were still confident in your abilities. Yeah. The following season, Sam Gallagher's brought in, and I think that we were still trying to play a way that we were playing with you and Dak, but with Sam there. And I think Sam's got superb qualities, but doesn't have the same qualities as you as a player, and can't do the job that you do for you did, for example. Were you frustrated that all of a sudden you were out the team and were in and out, and then you'd come in, we'd do well, but all of a sudden you'd find yourself back out the squad again? Was that frustrating?
Yeah, like you said, that the first season back, it was Players Player of the Year. So I kind of left that season full of confidence, and go away and train hard in the summer and come back, and I did that, and to not start the season was something I struggled to take, really.
I think it confused me at the time, because I know obviously you love seeing new players come, and Sam coming back was obviously, it was good to see, but for me, that first game, I think we almost expected that those new signings would be slowly bled in, and it was like, right, you're on, Danny, you're on the bench. And for me, it was a frustrating thing, because I enjoy watching you play. I like that long ball. It doesn't bother me. I like the fact that you're physical, you win the ball, and all of a sudden going away from that was weird.
Yeah, the hardest part for me was after the season I had was I kind of thought, and I don't know if this is me being naive or not, that that shirt was mine to lose, if that makes sense, from the start of the new season. And that was not the case. And I remember finding out on the Friday on the training pitch that I wasn't playing, and that was probably the first time at Blackburn I thought, that doesn't sit well with me. And now I'm not saying I should have been starting, not by any means, but I do just think after that season I should have been given a couple of games at least. And if I wasn't doing it, yeah, you bring someone else in course. And, you know, they have a run the team. That I've always been that. And I'm always one who will support the team and get right behind the boys who are playing. So that was hard. And I had a few conversations with Tony about that. And he kind of said, I want to kind of go away from the long ball stuff and play this passing sort of style. But, you know, it was strange because the games I wasn't playing, they used to put stats up around the training ground about the games, and we were first for long balls attempted. So that was just like thinking, oh, Mike, like, so why am I not playing then if you're saying you're going away from long ball, but we're not? So it was tough, but listen, after a few weeks, I kind of accepted it and knuckled down and trained, you know, like I normally train, and try and put a smile on the boys' faces and be a joker around the dressing room and have a laugh and a carry on and keep spirits high. But it was a frustrating time, yeah. And at some parts, I'll admit I did find it hard, yeah.
Obviously, you left at the end of that season. Was there ever the option to stay on for another year from the club? Or was it for you, it was just sometimes things come to end naturally, and this is the natural conclusion for Blackburn Rovers and Danny Graham? Was it a good? Do you feel it was a good place to leave it?
Yes, I do. I couldn't have went through another season like that. You know, bit part player coming on if we're chasing the game and stuff like that. It didn't kind of sit well with me, if I'm perfectly honest. So, you know, while I had so much love for the club and the fans had so much love for me, I felt as though if I had stayed, that might have ruined that.
Yeah, you don't want to sour.
Yeah, I didn't want it to sour at all. And from your own mind as well, I was thinking, you know, if I'd have to drop down a league to play football week in, week out, I'll do that. You know, there was many times more where I used to say all the boys over 30 can't play 3 games in a week, and, you know, little things like that. So I kind of knew it was going to come at some point. And that's fair enough. And listen, I've got massive respect for Tony Mowbray for what he's done for the football club and how he's handled a lot of sticky situations within the club. So, yeah, I do feel as though it was the right time to move on. Would I've loved to have stayed and finished my career at Blackburn? Oh, absolutely, yeah. But I don't think it would have sat well if I had stayed. And, you know, there was a conversation before. Was it Reading the last game of the season, the home game?
Yes, I think so.
So I kind of went in to see the gaffer and speak to him about it, and he went, "What's your feelings about these last 2 games and stuff?" I says, "Well, it's up to you." I says, "You tell me what you want to do." He says, "Well, I really want to give Jack Vale a run out." So I was like, "Right, that's fine. You leave me out of the game tomorrow. Give young Vale a chance, get him on the pitch and, you know, see how he does. That's fine." But I says, "Can I travel to the Luton game?" I says, "I'm 1 appearance away for 600 and I'd love to do it at Blackburn. So could I travel 1 more time with the boys?" And he was fine. And that was it. Yeah, no problem.
Did you come on as a sub in the Luton game? Or did you start?
No, I come on as a sub.
Was that disappointing for you? Were you a bit frustrated at that it wasn't a 600 appearance and it was 600 as a starting player?
No, because Ahmed done so well that season, and he obviously scored in that game as well. So for him to keep adding the goals and the numbers to his already great season he was having, I didn't think it was right I should start. I would kind of accepted that it would be a substitute appearance, which I was more than happy with. As long as it was at Blackburn, I'd made that appearance. That's all I was bothered about.
No, definitely. Like, it was a pleasure that you spent such a big amount of time at the club, and like I say, almost rejuvenated your career. And there is a couple of questions about Sunderland that I'll pop through. I think Lachlan Kearney's just asked, if the Sunderland move had worked out a bit better, do you think you'd still be playing, or was it your plan to always hang up your boots after that season?
I think it was always a plan for me to hang up the boots at the end of the season. I was kind of getting to the point where the things I used to like most was going in, having banter and cutting people's clothes up and cutting people's trainers up, and, you know, little things what bring people might say this is stupid, but it brings the dressing room together, the camaraderie between the lads, and, you know, hiding people's cars and and stuff like that around Brockhall and down the academy. You know, it brought the lads together, and stuff like that I kind of didn't enjoy anymore. And personally, I didn't enjoy the training anymore. So I kind of knew it was coming. Mm-hmm. So when in January, Lee Johnson said, you know, I'm going to go for younger players and stuff like that, there was no argument. It was fine. And then I kind of knew from there straight away, yeah.
Definitely. You spoke a lot about banter there. Now, Benno mentioned something on the pod about a certain Mr. Diaz. Obviously, first off, how excited are you for Ben Diaz and his Chilean master? He's a sensation. Have you seen his Instagram? Full of comments.
I've seen it, yeah. Listen, we all knew about Ben's mum being born in Chile when he signed for the club, and it was one of them, like, yeah, shut up, Benno. Shut up, because he is that type of guy. He's really dunce, and he says a lot of stupid things. So you kind of think it's just one of them. But then, obviously, when you sit down with him more and he tells you about it, you're like, oh wow, so you actually could play for Chile, and that was spoken about 2 years ago. Yeah. And to get the call up, mate, is unbelievable, and to score and set up a goal in the Copa America can only fill him with confidence coming back for the next season.
Turn Gordon, like Gordon was a Sunday League player, just completely sent him. I know. I didn't think I'd see it. Seeing Ben Brereton line up, a Blackburn player, and line up in the Copa America for Chile, let alone a man that's got an accent like Ben Brereton.
Against Messi as well.
I know. Have you seen the picture of near it? It is quite surreal. Obviously great for him, and like you say, coming with huge confidence. Benno spoke about, though, this occasion when a Christmas do, white suit. He mentioned that, and how you played a big part in that. You showed, I think he said that you bought a white suit off Ace. I said, yeah, Ben, this is mine.
I bought one and I stuck it on, right? And honestly, it was about £18. It wasn't even a suit. I don't know what it was. So I put it on in the mirror and I had to hide my ankles because they were that baggy, the pants. So I just kind of got my top half in and sent them in saying, oh, boys, I'm ready for Christmas do, just to try and suck them in a bit more.
What was he like? Is he obviously Benno said he took it in really good humour. Was he one of those lads where just you can't not like him? He seems to be just a really great lad.
He is a great lad, yeah. And for a young lad, he's full of character and he's full of beans. And listen, he's had a tough first couple of years, certainly at Rovers. The potential's there. I think you can see that in the Copa America. He's a young boy who needs probably the fans to get behind him, which I think as though they have done in the last 6 to 8 months. I think they've really got behind Bez, which is great. And like I say, I only think this Copa America and scoring the goals and playing against the Lionel Messis of this world and stuff like that can only fill him with confidence for next season. And I'm praying he really does kick on.
Did he find it a little bit difficult, the expectation? Because I think, was he 19 when he came? Obviously, we signed him for £6.5 million, £6 million pounds, I think. Huge money for a player that was pretty unknown. And then didn't sort of hit the ground running, struggled a lot. I know that people basically like Bambi on ice at times. Just, you could see that he's trying to do things and he just wasn't quite working. Do you think that played into his confidence? And
I think it did. Yeah, I think it did play into his confidence. And like you say, I think whether he admits it or not, it's a big price tag for a championship player and a young championship player to come in and people expected to hit the ground running, like you say. And you know, it was tough for him because that was the first season back in the championship, and me and Daki were doing ever so well. So I think there was a few factors in behind it why he kind of struggled. But I think you can see even from last season some of the driving runs he does when he picks up the ball. You know, is a joy to watch. And you know, I've always said to Bez, and I always try to take him aside for finishing drills and stuff like that. And as soon as he adds goals to his game, you know, you've got a really quality player on your hands there, 100%.
There's definitely a good player in there. I think we've seen it in feats. I think last season was definitely showed it more often, and I don't think it was a surprise that a lull in form sort of came when he was injured, because at the start of the season he was unplayable, and was scoring goals, and it was really great to see. And I think speak for all Rovers fans when we really hope it works out for him, because he does seem, like you say, a great lad. So I thought we'd finish on some quick fire questions, if that's okay, Danny. I can see the hour 6 minutes, so I won't keep you for much longer. But some of them we've already asked. I'll skip some of them. What about your best performance in a Rovers shirt? What do you think that was?
Sheffield Wednesday.
Sheffield Wednesday. The hat-trick?
Hat-trick and assist, yeah.
And the assist, I didn't know the assist. I forgot about that. Spotted. Do you remember all your goals that you've scored? Every single one?
Probably.
Is it what's that feel? So I play Sunday League, and when I score, so I'm a striker. Don't do very well, but scoring a goal, obviously, it's Sunday League's best feeling ever. So I can't imagine. Well, obviously, it's not the best feeling ever. Can't imagine what it's like in front of a full of people that some of them want to kill you, some of them want to kiss you. Yeah. Is it one of them where you just have to remember it?
Yeah, you just got to, obviously the goals, what kind of stick out in your mind are the ones where you've probably won the game. You're not remembering goals where you've probably scored in a 2-1 defeat. Do you know what I mean? You'd rather the goals count for something. So some of the goals, you're picking up the ball out the net and running back, trying to get back into the game. So obviously they're nice, but they're not as good as the ones where you score and maybe you just win 1-0, or you score 2 and it's a 2-0 win. Them goals are, incredible feelings, incredible highs, and you're bouncing around the dressing room afterwards with the lads and stuff like that. It's a great feeling to have.
Definitely. And the best player that you played with at Rovers?
Daki.
Daki?
Yeah, it has to be Daki, yeah.
The hardest trainer at Rovers?
Richie Smallwood.
Funniest player that you've played with?
The Bull, Craig Conway, or Charlie Mulgrew.
Everyone says them. Craig Conway, I think, said himself on a podcast with us.
Yeah, yeah, that doesn't surprise me. Charlie's more of a storyteller, like a far-fetched storyteller, but it's just incredible the way he tells a story. And Bull's just hilarious, just out and out hilarious. So probably Bull.
Okay, biggest part of the club, and who did you room with?
Didn't room with anyone.
Did you not?
No. I always liked going in people's rooms, or 5 or 6 of the lads coming to my room, maybe to watch the game on a Friday or stuff like that, and sort of go back to your room or in your whoever you're sharing with, and I just liked my own space before a game, probably because I had kids. And I didn't
bit to get away.
So as soon as the boys go, I was just so yeah, I didn't room with anyone at the time at Rovers, I don't think, unless we were forced to. Maybe he's on a pre-season trip. Best mate, I'd be a fool to pick one, to be honest. I really did get on with everyone. I spent a lot of time with Daki, obviously, Richie Smallwood when we travelled in, young Harry Chapman. He took the brunt of some of the jokes on the way down. I wouldn't like to pick one if I'm being perfectly honest.
No, that's fine. Like I said, it seemed an unreal group to be part of. So it's understandable.
I don't want to text message you, why didn't you pick me?
You made the mistake of thinking that Blackburn players watch this, apart from John Buckley, of course.
Yeah, Buckley's my best mate.
He's probably tuned out now you said that.
Yeah.
And finally, for the quickfire questions, can England win the Euros?
Yes. After we got past Germany, I think we have a really good chance, yeah.
Definitely. And I'll finish off with one last question in the comments. Let's have a look. Actually, I saw one before that I liked, but I can't quite find it. There it is. Dan Slater. Are there any plans for legend that is Danny Graham to come and say farewell to us when fans are back in the stadium?
I've not heard from the club, which is obviously understandable because of what's going on and stuff. But is the fans allowed back in from the start of the season? I
think so, yeah. I'm not too sure what the capacity is, though. I don't know if it's full capacity.
So whether the club invite me back or not, I'll more than likely be at the first game against Swansea. I'll try and wrangle some tickets off Harry Chapman.
There you go. So you'll be in the stands?
I'll hopefully be in the stands if fans are allowed back in. And listen, if Blackburn don't invite me back for a farewell, whatever, that's fine. They don't need to. Me time at the club, you know, if you can see behind me there, it's all pictures of Blackburn, what was a present and stuff like that. So I don't need to come back. Listen, if the fans wanted me to, then of course I would. But I've said it before in previous interviews, I'll be down to watch games regardless in any ways. So that doesn't really bother me.
I think there's a lot of love in the comments for wanting to come back. Joe Harvey's asked you after you come into Filed for the pre-season game. I think he said before he's got a spare ticket. So you have to DM him if you're interested in watching the first game of football back for Rovers in pre-season. I can't imagine it'll be a good one, but we'll see. And then Kevin just says us fans want DG there. So like I said, there's a lot of clamour in the comments for you to come back. Chris as well, always welcome back at Ewood. So I think that sort of gives you a taste of how we feel as fans about you.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
But no, definitely, that is probably a lot, guys. Obviously, Danny, absolute pleasure talking to you. I've loved every single minute of it. Getting to do these, obviously, an honour. So thanks to Rovers Chat for giving me the opportunity. It really does mean a lot. Rovers fans, be sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any content on our YouTube channel. You can check out previous player interviews with the likes of Elliot Bennett, Craig Conway, and many, many more. A big reminder as well that we have our big summer quiz to look forward to. Let me just find the overlay for it. There is some big prizes there. So there's a £25 voucher for the Rose Radio store, signed Elliot Bennett boots. You can read them all. I don't have to do it all. And John Buckley, if you're watching, giving a signed kit away. So obviously, thank you for that. So far, we've been able to raise £252 for Sporting Minds UK, which is Rovers charity partner for the season. Obviously, they're looking towards mental health. So it's obviously a very, very important thing for football in general, I think. Mental health is massively important. And that's one thing that we're supporting this season. So I'll leave it there. Enjoy the rest of Euro 2020. For those of you watching our main man, Brereton Diaz as well, enjoy the Copa America. I'll leave you with our sponsors message from 6 Yards Out and Blue Rose Capital.
The Rovers Chat YouTube channel is proudly sponsored by 6yardsout.com. They've got retro football from every era with mugs, phone cases and much more. They also have plenty of Rovers goods, including apparel with the famous 94-95 season and this season's kit. Check them out using the link in the description below.